All right. Wait lang ah. Para well, good afternoon everyone. Please invite your friends. Wait lang. Um, play muna ako ng background music para may pagka ano. Welcome. Hi guys. The webinar will start soon. Invite your friends. Very educational yung webinar na to. Super excited to have it with you guys, to present it with you guys. So just stick around, invite your friends. We'll start soon. Okay.
Simon and Joe both invest in stocks.
All right. And good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our PDAX weekly webinars. No? If this is your first time here watching, welcome po. Ako po ay si Kyle and I'll be your host for this week's webinar as always. And yeah, just for those first time watching, no, PDAX, who are we? We are a BSP licensed virtual currency exchange where you can trade digital assets such as Bitcoin, XRP, Ether, Litecoin in an open market at the most competitive prices. So we want to empower every Filipino to invest with easy access. And so, by the way, guys, may giveaway tayo, no? May giveaway na naman tayo sa webinar na to. So, all you have to do, watch until the end of the stream, comment kayo, tanong kayo ng questions regarding this week's webinar topic, which is very important and very educational, no? And we'll be giving away 300 pesos worth of Bitcoin at the end of it via random comment picker. So, comment kayo, question kayo, magtanong kayo, and yeah, super exciting. So for this week's webinar, in observance of the Cybersecurity Awareness Month, no, we've invited someone in the security industry, cybersecurity industry, but more of how to keep your funds safe. How do we protect ourselves? Lalo na ngayon in these times na everyone's online, and especially during this time where a lot of those who are not really natives to the digital space are still figuring out how to best use it, and how information gets spread around. No, it's really important na a lot of what we do online does not affect us negatively, because you never know, no? So for this week, we've invited none other than Sir Paul Prantilla of Redrock Security, who is the COO and Director of IT Operations. Before I show his and introduce him, no, pakita ko lang yung poster para makita niyo yung mukha niya. Kasi right now, I think he's having technical difficulties with his cam, so you won't be able to see him. But watch the poster. Ayun, so that's Sir Paul. Ayun na. I hope you guys can imagine. And before I finally introduce him, watching from Cebu, watching from province of Cebu, Davao, Isabela, thank you so much. Thank you so much, no, for tuning in. Sure, informative na to. Lalo na since, things have been picking up quite fast this week, with Bitcoin reaching 600,000 pesos. 630,000 pesos live on our site right now. So, very important to learn how to safeguard your assets as well. So, without further ado, I welcome Sir Paul. Sir Paul, welcome to the stream. Welcome to the webinar.
Hi, thanks, Kyle. Just want to ask if you can see this, if you can hear me and see this title screen.
Yes, I can. I can.
All right, so thank you. So apologies, guys. My camera is not working at the moment. But so I'm here to give a talk about practical personal IT security, how this could be applied into our daily work. So just want to introduce myself a bit and give a bit of a background on who we are and what we do. So basically, I come from Redrock Security, where basically IT security professionals with over 15 years of experience. So we come from several industries. We're former professors in University of the Philippines. We're former executives in telecoms. We work as senior IT consultants for the government. A lot of us are MS and PhD graduates, specifically in computer security. We're also trainers as well because of our teaching background. If you've heard of Core Security, that's basically the world's most advanced penetration testing platform used to, quote unquote, test hack into systems. There are only 2 certified trainers for this in the Asia Pacific region, myself and another one of my colleagues. We're also the only Filipinos to consistently place in international competitions, and that includes winning a first place in DEF CON. That's the world's biggest hacking conference, held annually in Las Vegas. So what we did was we wanted to set up a company here a few years back in order to really pool IT security expertise and provide that as a service. So IT security is really our passion. It's our mandate, so to speak, to educate people on how to protect themselves. So that said, so basically we try to accumulate certifications for IT security and then impart that knowledge as well. Okay, so that said, just a bit of a context. We should know that every day, every time we are in the internet, every time we are connected by our phone or our computers, IT threats are constantly there. We're constantly being attacked. And that goes doubly true for organizations. So these are just a few of the companies who are known to have been compromised in one way or another during the past few years. And the thing is, these are companies that spend so much on IT security, and yet these happen. So why is that so? The thing is, it just takes one email to get clicked, one user to click on a malicious file, a URL, and that would lead the organization to be hacked. So this example, for example, this file called sbchost.exe, this is actually a file that when clicked, it won't open the notepad and show you a text file. It will actually provide an attacker full control over your computer. Same with this as well. It does not have to be a file being clicked in your local computer. It can just be you accessing a site over the internet. Yes, accessing a site over the internet can make your computer under full control over an attacker. So PDF files as well. So just opening a PDF file and clicking allow if we're not paying too much attention on these security warnings. Let's say there's this PDF file that wishes to connect to an external site. That would allow the attacker to have full control over your computer as well. So that is one reason why we're constantly under threat. These happen all the time. That has gotten worse actually with the pandemic, because to get people to click on emails, with malicious software, attackers want to make it look like it's legit. They want it to look like it's something you want to click. So they would register lately COVID-19 related domains and websites, and they'll make it as if an email is coming from there. So it will look as if the email is coming from an official quote-unquote COVID-19 domain to get you to click on it. And there you go. That's how they gain access to your computer. So not only has that increased the number of phishing emails, but any type of attack that is related to COVID, under the guise of a COVID-related news article or a COVID-related website, that is the foundation of attackers providing phishing emails. And again, it just takes one click on that email for them to compromise your computer. So why does this happen so easily? Why is hacking happening all the time? Why are organizations being hacked all the time? So the thing is, IT security is not taught in schools, right? People in schools, students are taught how to create IT systems, but they're not taught how to secure them. So they're taught to meet deadlines as fast as possible, create complex software, add this feature, add this feature. When's the deadline? Oh, in 2 days. So they'll do everything they can to meet that deadline, but that will always come at the cost of securing the system. So even IT professionals are not fully aware how easy it is to get hacked. For those who are not familiar, IT security is a subfield under IT. Just because someone is an expert in programming doesn't necessarily mean that someone knows a thing about IT security. That's the unfortunate truth. So now, if even IT professionals are easy targets to get hacked, well, what about our everyday non-technical people? Our lolos, our lolas, firemen, lawyers? So the answer is very likely everyone who is not an IT security professional are very likely to get hacked. And even IT security professionals, which I'll show you in a bit, do get hacked. So to demonstrate this, if you guys have your computer in front of you, I'd like you to visit this site, https haveibeenpawned.com. So type that while I describe what it's all about. So systems are always compromised, right? And these include systems like email platforms, Dropbox, LinkedIn, any site that you enter or register using your email address and a password. Those are IT security systems too that can be compromised. And once it is compromised, attackers basically have your email and your password. So we should assume that websites will get hacked. Therefore, we should assume that our passwords will be compromised uh, sometime as well. So if you put here your, let's say, your main email address, I am almost certain that there will be results showing a system where you registered this email address of yours, and it also says that the password has been released for that. So I'm hoping that we should know what to do. We want to prevent this from happening, and we should know what to do once these happen. So anyway, I'll talk about this a bit more later, but this is one reason why we should never reuse our passwords for every website that we sign up for. Because if one of them gets hacked, then to the hacker world, they already know, and you'll see in this site, it will show your password. So all a person has to do is to try out all other websites. They will try your email address and they will try the password that you have used, and they will see if you use the same password for that system. So again, that demonstrates why we are always at risk and how easy it is for even um, well-known websites to be compromised and have sensitive information like your passwords divulged. So I'm gonna try to demystify what is a hack for a bit. So this is gonna be a bit technical, but I think I can describe it fairly well to non-technical people here. So what I want to describe is a hack consists of a threat. That is anything that represents something malicious. You combine that threat with a vulnerability, which represents a weakness in your program, a weakness in your code, a weakness in your configuration. When you combine a threat to take advantage and to exploit the vulnerability, that gives rise to risk. So threats, in short, are possible danger. Vulnerabilities are weaknesses, and when you combine that to bad stuff happens, risk happens. So that said, in an actual hack, it all starts with a weakness. You have a computer running a program that is vulnerable, so meaning it has a weakness, and it's accessible via the network. It's accessible via the internet. So one good example for this is the Windows file sharing service. By default, this is enabled in all Windows installations. So one day, it was discovered that this had a weakness, and the attackers knew about that weakness, and they crafted a threat to take advantage of it. And that threat is called an exploit. So for this particular real-world example, the Windows file sharing service had a weakness. An exploit was developed. The exploit even had a name, a code name called Eternal Blue. The role of the exploit is to make that program, the vulnerable program, behave in a way that was not intended by the developers. They will make that program do whatever it wants. And that whatever it wants is called the payload. All right? So exploit, the blue, it makes the red, the program, do whatever it wants because there's a weakness in the program. What will it do? It will do the payload, which is WannaCry. So in this case, WannaCry, the payload, would encrypt the entire computer and try to extort the user to pay Bitcoins in order to fix up the computer. So some of you may have heard about this. This is quite well known, the WannaCry problems. But this is an example of what happens during a hack. Vulnerability, is exploited, and then a payload is detonated or run. So that's what happens during a hack. So how do these hacks commonly happen in everyday life? So first thing is the vulnerability in question tries to target your web browser. There are websites that will try to exploit a vulnerability in your web browser. So if your web browser will access a website that is designed to exploit your web browser, it can make your computer, try to make your computer do whatever it wants. And that quote unquote whatever it wants is typically to give the attacker full control of your computer. So they will try to make you click on a link. So they can try to do that with what we call malicious links. This is an actual email that purportedly comes from Netflix. It will try to make you believe that your account has been suspended, and it will try to get you to click on this link, log into your account. If you do that, that basically gives control of your computer to the attacker. Another way is attachments that actually bring you to an external site. And in order to hide what that internal site is, the attacker would want to shorten or disguise the name of that malicious site so it's not obvious. All right. So this email is a real-life phishing email addressed to the SANS Institute. So the SANS Institute is one of the world's most recognized IT security training providers. So here, the attackers studied what the teachers were talking about in the SANS Institute. Then the attacker made the email look like it was coming from another SANS Institute lecturer, with saying that, oh, here's our new curriculum. So even IT security people are vulnerable to this. All right. And again, if this can happen to IT security people, how much more easy it would be to get our moms and our dads to click on malicious links. PDFs, again, I showed earlier, PDF can achieve the same thing. In this case, the vulnerable program is your PDF viewer. So the attacker tries to create a PDF that contains an exploit to your PDF reader. So when you open that, it's gonna make your computer behave in a way that is not expected. And again, that would be to give an attacker full access. All right. Same with Word documents. So it's not even limited to clicking stuff on the web. It's not limited to clicking executable stuff on your computer. Simply opening a Word document can do the same sort of damage, right? Here, that could be recognized by these warnings. When there's a warning that says macros, a macro is needed in order to fully view the document, that should be a flag, all right? So some tips I want to touch on to avoid these attempts. So first, turn off quote-unquote automatic hyperlinks in your email. So this will make it easier to prevent you from automatically clicking URLs with malicious links. Also, be wary of emails that say, emergency, please click on this. Those are, and those emails that tend to say, for more information, please access this site. Please access this to learn more about it. Those are the things that you have to avoid. Disabling macros, I've touched that a while ago. We should disable that. So that prevents Office documents from doing damage. Also, especially now, we've added this specifically due to the COVID. There was a point during the ECQ around May where hundreds of new domains that sounded like WHO or CDC were being created. So that's a preparation step for attackers to send fake email. So beware if there's email coming from WHO or our equivalent here in the Philippines for CDC. These will look authentic, but we have to know exactly, we have to recognize that this is really the correct domain. All right. So avoid opening attachments and especially treat emails about COVID-19 with caution. So what happens when one account, let's go back a while ago. What happens when one system with a lot of emails and passwords is hacked, and then it's shared across the internet to all other hackers? First of all, this happens a lot more common than you think. So one of the biggest ever done was this one. You would see in the website I showed you a while ago, haveibpawn.com. So here, in this collection, 772 million accounts were compromised, showing email addresses and passwords. So imagine that. That's 300 million more, less than a billion. There, you'd better believe that this may likely contain one of your email addresses. So that would mean your password was there and exposed. Again, that could be reusable by attackers. It happens as well to well-known services like Dropbox. This was pretty well known. 68 million records with email addresses and passwords. All right. If the passwords are hash, or let's say, or cannot be read directly, that's just a speed bump. Attackers will join forces in order to crack the passwords, and once it's cracked, that's it. People would know your password. In exploit.ln was as well. That's quite a well-known hack. 593 million accounts were divulged. So again, anytime you register to a website or online service, you should know that that's not foolproof. Again, just like any IT security system, that can be hacked. And once it does, your password used there could be dumped and spread out. So that's why we should never use the same password. So this has been used fairly recently. So now that it's easy to find out what passwords people are using. We saw this a lot in the recent years, where a person would look up your email address and see if one of your passwords has been exposed. And then they will send something like this. We call it scareware. They will say, hello, I know your password. It's this, right? So you may not know me, so you're wondering why you're probably getting this email. And then the email will pretend that it hacked you. It's going to say, actually, I hacked you. And now I know everything in your computer. I know that your computer has porn. I know that you've went to this website. I know everything about you. So pay me this much. So we'll keep this a secret and we won't humiliate you across the internet. So we got so many frantic calls and emails when this was a thing, right? So we explained to them, no, that's not true. They just looked up your email on the internet, and they found out what was one of your passwords that you were using for that email address. So yeah, but this was a thing for a while. All right, so now that I've talked about all the risks, let's talk about how to protect our devices. So first, let's start with the basic. Always make sure that everything is updated. Now, why? Right? I've showed you a while ago that hacks work because there is a vulnerability. There is a weakness in a program. So updating your software means that the weaknesses are being remediated. They're being solved. So that's why updating your software is very important. So this can be done in Windows automatically by going to the Windows Update screen. Make sure to do this as well with your mobile devices. The thinking should be, if it's software, it's hackable, and assume it will be hacked. Next, okay, here, I'm showing how to do the same thing for your mobile devices. If you notice, this is what you're paying for when you're getting support from Apple or official support from any operating system, actually. It ensures that you get timely security updates. So this is why we really frown upon sideloading and rooting jailbreaking your phones. What the reason why your iPhone, for example, is so expensive is because it has that security. It will only load, it's supposed to only load software that has been recognized as secure. So if you jailbreak your iPhone, you throw that out of the window. Now any software can be run, and there's no validation anymore if it's legit or not. So that's why this is quite important. Same goes with antivirus software. So uh, uh, this is pretty obvious to IT people, but signatures change all the time. So this updates what are the newest threats out there and how your computer should detect them. Your firewall should be enabled. So why is this important? So firewalls make it so that strangers can't just contact your computer uh, in any situation. It blocks uh, uh, it, um, unintended communication to your device. Now, it also is supposed to block weird or malicious communication that's trying to get out of your device. So one popular thing is that when attacker, or when you click on something that would give an attacker full control over your computer will try to quote unquote call back to the attacker. Your computer will try to reach out to the attacker across the internet and say, hey, I'm now usable. What's your command? So firewalls also stop that. Not only should it prevent attacks from coming in, it should they're intended so that it stops bad communications from going out. Although you could argue that once it reaches that point, something was, your computer got compromised already in some way. All right. Next is only install signed software. I won't go to the details here. I usually have another talk for this. But if you want to install software, make sure that it has something like this, a verified publisher. All right. Without going to the details, this validates that the software really came from Microsoft. You want to avoid software that says unknown publisher. Okay. And you want to also double check, who is this publisher? I know Apple. Who is this Bailey software? Some applications will make you explicitly validate that. So here again, you'll see. So it takes in different forms. It looks different depending on the operating system and the installation process. But that's something you want to look at. This publisher identity verified. Okay. Now our browser. Browsers are actually quite dangerous if you think about it, because it lets your computer talk to any stranger in the internet. So it's like telling our kids, saying, oh, you can talk to anyone you meet on the street. So just like in real life, we should be wary if we're accessing sites we're not that familiar with. I know that may seem strange for people who grew up in an internet that was relatively safer and friendlier, like an oldie like me, but things have changed, right? You want to make sure you know what your browser is doing and what it's accessing. So here I'm basically repeating something similar, where emails will try to get you to open a browser and open a malicious URL from that browser. So I won't get into this too much. All right. Now, this one I'd like to get into. If you access a website using SSL and you get this problem, I'm pretty sure some people have seen this. There is a problem with this website security certificate. Do not proceed. This is telling you that the website, paypal.com, that you're accessing is probably not paypal.com, at least to my knowledge. That's what the browser is telling you. I, as a browser, I'm telling you, this is not the paypal.com I know. All right? So we should not continue to that website. Okay, because what SSL does is it not just encrypts traffic between your browser and the server. That's what most people think the role of SSL is. While that is true, the second part is equally as important. SSL is actually the way to validate if this server is who it says it is. I mean, sure, you could have an encrypted connection to PayPal.com, but if it's a fake PayPal.com, then you're encrypting all your transactions to a fake person. So encryption is not enough. You need to validate in order to make sure that website is really what it says it is. Okay? This one is a must. Disable browser scripts. Now, these days, browsers are they're incredible. All right, I grew up in the days where browsers were just used for accessing static, motionless sites with just text and pictures on it. Now, browsers are like frigging computers. They run languages, they run scripts. All right, so you want to control what those scripts and languages are actually doing. You'd be surprised to know that accessing just a simple website will be running so many scripts, accessing different websites to get resources from. These plugins allow you to control that. No script save, and JS. And in Windows, well, at least for Internet Explorer back then, there are equivalent options for Edge. You could set security levels for restricting what the browser can do depending on the website it is accessing. So I consider this pretty important. So last section of this presentation is how to protect your accounts and passwords. So now let me talk about what two-factor authentication is. This is, if we say two-factor authentication, I'm pretty sure most people heard about this in one way or another. But what is a factor, quote unquote factor? A factor, an authentication factor could be something you know. So that's the most traditional. A password is something only you know. All right. So that's why you could use it to identify yourself, because supposedly it's something only you in the world know that that's the password. Another factor would be something you have. It's something that ideally you can prove that you're the only person in the world who has that something. An example would be a mobile phone. I'll explain why later, but for now, let's take it as is. All right. Another thing is something you are. So a fingerprint represents something you are, and supposedly you're the only one in the world with that fingerprint. Iris, and your iris is the same. For some of you who use iPhones, well, it uses your face as an authentication factor. Again, that falls under something you are. Traditionally, we've only used one authentication factor, and that's a password. So what two-factor authentication means is you need two of these three at least, all right? And typically, it's the something you have. So an implementation of OTP would be, I will sign into Google, I will put something I know, and then I'll combine that with something I have. Now, your mobile phone has a unique MSISDN, and combine that with a SIM card, which should have a unique IMEI. That should be something only you in the world would have. You just have to prove to Google that you have that phone with you at that point of logging in addition to proving to Google that you know your password. So for Google to validate if you really have that phone, it sends the OTP via SMS. So that way, if it sends that one-time password or string or passcode to your phone, and you're able to reply in a few seconds, then Google would conclude that, aha, now this person really has that phone. And since this person really knows his email address, he's probably who he says he is. Another way to implement OTP would be an authenticator protocol. You could use Google Authenticator for that, but there are many programs that do this. Basically, the problem with SMS is that it's only going to work if there's a signal. What the authenticator protocol does, the OTP protocol does, is it it lets your phone download this and sync up with Google so that every minute they both change to the same number. They both know about the same number. So if here at 12:32 p.m., if it says that under example.com, the OTP used, the one-time password used for this minute is 515462, and I give that to Google, Google would know that as well, that at 12:32, it would be 515462. So that's another way to validate that you really have that phone. Okay? So, okay, here, I explained that. So now, let's go to password management. I've mentioned a while ago how bad it would be if you would be using the same password for every single site you register to. Because that would mean once any one of those sites are compromised, then anyone could reuse your password to your other sites. So you're probably asking right now, so how the hell do I make a unique, very long password and very secure password for every site I go to? So this is a must to have at this point, LastPass. There are other password managers out there. This just happens to be the one I use. This manages, make sure that you have a single strong password for every site you go to. You're able to generate a password as long, well, you can make it really, really long with uppercase, lowercase numbers and symbols, and to make sure that you generate a unique one for every site you go to. All right. Now, this itself, LastPass, it has a master password, so that the only way to view all of those passwords would be to input the master password. And hey, we would want to put two-factor authentication along with the master password. So how does that look in real life? So, for example, I have LastPass on my phone. All the passwords here are synced to LastPass as well in my other devices in a secure way. Now, in order to view my passwords, I have Face ID. And in addition to Face ID, I should provide an OTP as well. So I'm already combining that in order to access my passwords. All right? So in addition to a master password, you put OTP as well in order to access that. So now, once I have access to all my accounts, my Google password would be here. I would sign into Google, and Google itself would have two-factor authentication. So again, in order to access LastPass, I need two-factor authentication. I get the password of Google. I sign into Google, put the password there, and again, I need two-factor authentication for the service itself, which is Google. So I put my OTP here. I get that from Authenticator, from Google. I put 666760, and then I'm logged in. So that's what we should do. So what happens here is that even if an attacker gets the Google password, there's still OTP. All right. So basically, that's the presentation. So yeah, we just have 15 more minutes. So I'd be glad to take questions. Any questions are most welcome. This is a placeholder email, but it would reach me eventually if you send a question. So yeah, back to you, Kat.
All right. Thank you so much, Sir Paul. And there you have it, guys. That was the entire presentation of Sir Paul. Thank you so much, Sir Paul. I learned a lot on that presentation. Um, in fact, when regarding the emails, if my mom receives any dubious email, I'm thankful at least na she asks me first. Parang I remember one time there was something from like PAL, Philippine Airlines. Then she made me check it. She was like, "Kyle, is this true?" I was like, "No." And then I check the link first. Diba? That's the some things that people just blindly do not check. They're not cautious, so that these things kind of happen. These kinds of things happen. All right. So let us answer some questions that have been piling up from our comment section. No? So let's see here.
Yeah, how do we do this? You
Here.
just pick one, Kyle, and then
Yeah.
answer. All right, cool.
Yeah,
Go
I'll
ahead.
pick one. Siguro this one is more crypto related, but I think you would have the general wisdom to answer this. So I'll let you answer it first, then I can supplement it now. Here from Rodel. How about the numerous crypto airdrops that are posted online? How insecure is this since many Filipinos strive on these kinds of schemes? So would you have any context on crypto airdrops, Sir Paul?
Um, Crypto airdrop. I'm not.
It
Is that a cyber cryptocurrency thing?
what happens is people will claim that you have to send a certain amount of crypto to receive some back. So parang they will
Oh,
guarantee you something once you send them a certain amount of cryptocurrency. So I guess without the ano, uh, parang it from the get go, it sounds too good to be true to be receiving us. Parang, why would you have to send money to receive money like two times the money back, right? So I think these sorts of things from the get go, um, very I would advise you to the public and everyone watching to be more cautious on these kinds of things. So yeah, but
yeah.
yeah,
All right. I'm not intimately familiar with the cryptocurrency schemes in particular. Although, just looking it up quickly, so this seems to try to establish a network effect, right?
yes,
Because blockchains, for example, you need a certain size of the network in order it to grow. So that's probably the motivation behind trying to get people to get in the network. Again, um, um, all right. Um, my general advice would be wary of any um, any program or any software that claims it has its own security algorithm. That's the number one rule. Uh, Everyone has to know that for a security algorithm, an encryption algorithm, to be mathematically accepted as secure, it has to go through a lot of peer reviews in the academe. It has to go through a lot of trial and error. So it's very unlikely if a new company comes up and says, "Oh, I have this new encryption algorithm. It's secure," and then it's the first time most people have heard about it. Now that's most likely not true. And the other aspect of this is that, well, generally, if something seems too good to be true, it probably is. And
definitely.
really, that should be our general, um, yeah, our general disposition for anything in the internet, really, at this point.
Understood. Yeah, so I guess that's the general rule, guys. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. So thank you, Rodel, for your question. All right, here from Christopher. Can we still get hacked if I turn off my Wi-Fi/network right ahead if I find something malicious happening?
Um,
Interesting question.
well, the
Thank you.
question would be, how did you find something malicious happening? Because if you feel that there's something malicious happening in your laptop, then it's probably too late. Um, because say you turned off your Wi-Fi, but among one of the first things that attackers get to automatically run on your computer would be to dump credentials or to exfiltrate sensitive information. So uh, and let's say the first thing that happens when you click on the malware would be the malware would send username and password credentials outside. So even if you turn off your Wi-Fi after you notice something wrong, it's probably too late. Usually what we do at that point is just recommend that, okay, change all your passwords, reinstall your computer and change all your online passwords. And again, hopefully your online passwords are not the same one for everything. Um, by the way, just one thing, since we're talking about Wi-Fi,
Sure.
guys, never connect to open Wi-Fi. Okay, because what happens is if your laptop or your mobile device connects to free NIA Wi-Fi, free airport Wi-Fi, your phone or your laptop always remembers that. From that point on, no matter where you are, even if you're not in the airport, your laptop or device will keep on searching. It will keep on beaconing out. Free airport Wi-Fi, are you there? Free airport Wi-Fi, are you there? So if you go to Starbucks 2 months later, your phone will be doing the same thing. Hey, free airport Wi-Fi, are you there? So a common thing that attackers do is they set up fake access points. They will respond to your phone and say, oh, I am free airport Wi-Fi. You can connect to me. So your phone will connect to that, and then the attacker can see what everything you're doing.
Wow.
All right, that's very, very common. And in fact, when we do penetration testing for companies, we just go to the nearest Starbucks.
Wow.
So yeah,
So yes, when no such thing as a free Wi-Fi, as they would say, no such thing as
No.
a free lunch as well.
if you have ever connected to free Wi-Fi before, delete that from your phones.
Yeah, definitely. Only or use would it? Okay, question to that is: what if you use a VPN to connect to the public Wi-Fi? Would that still be?
Before you're able to establish a VPN, you are using that free Wi-Fi.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it comes out. The VPN comes after.
Right. Understood. Okay. Got it. Thank you for that. Okay, we have one here from John, and I suspect maybe a lot of us are experiencing, because most of us maybe are on our phones or on mobile devices. So, how about for those who are using iOS and Android devices? Any general tips versus the ones that we can see purely for desktop / web experience? How about for the mobile experience?
Um, I'm not sure what this is specifically referring to. Although I did mention that if we're using mobile devices, same thing. We just have to ensure that we're always updating our software. Don't jailbreak your devices, because that would throw out the window the controls that prevent just any software from running. You don't want just any software to be running on your phone. You don't know where that's been. You don't know who made it, right? And if you think about it, nowhere, no time in the history of mankind has one person's breadth of information, personal information, has been so focused on one device than now. And that's your mobile phone. So that said, why would you put just anything from the internet on your mobile phone? You should be paranoid about that. So that's why we feel very strongly about that. Don't jailbreak your phone. Be careful of what you install in it.
Got it. All right. Sige. Siguro a couple more questions now before we wrap it all up and then choose our winner for this giveaway. So, they asked here, is PDAX ready for cybersecurity invaders? And what can you guarantee to your clients? Very
I guess that's for
fun.
you, Kyle.
Yeah, very funny term yung invaders. Parang alien sila. But actually, we treat our um, overall, if you're talking, there are like multiple parts to this, right? Like first of all, there's account security, so that's on the user mismo to on you guys on keeping your password safe, activating 2FA so that you don't, so that other people won't have access to your account to access your um, account in PDAX, no? And then the other side of it is keeping funds safe in terms of like how sure is PDAX in maintaining um, the funds that the client our clients deposit, no? So for that side naman, we treat our um, we store our assets in cold wallets, such as meaning they're not connected to network any network related device. So we call those cold wallets, and we store a lot of our cryptocurrencies in cold wallets, which would be very secure, and like the only way it can be um, quote unquote stolen would be if you would have the actual cold wallet in on hand. So yeah. And we also have we do audits, if I'm not mistaken, of of our cybersecurity by Sir Paul, right? You guys audit our parts of our
Yes.
application. Yes.
Right. Basically, one of the services that Redrock provides is a full source code audit where our analysts actually read and analyze the source code of programs. Um, there's this misconception that in order to make sure that a program does not have any weaknesses, you subject it to a VAPT, vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. The thing is, it's like, yes, it's effective, but it's like asking a thief to check if your house is fully secure by figuring out ways he can get in. Um, the that's just gonna show an incomplete picture, right? By looking at the program from the inside, it's like having someone, an architect, build a house and know and validate everything to tell you where the weaknesses are. So there's nothing hidden anymore, right? You're not outside looking in. You're not a thief outside looking inside the house and figuring out if the house is secure or not. You have everything, the blueprints. That's the equivalent of having the source code. So we feel that that's a more effective way to make sure that software is secure by actually looking at the source code. And that's what we're doing with PDAPs.
All right. Sige. So I'll just wrap it up. It's 6 p.m. na, no? And I just want to say thank you so much, Sir Paul. Thank you for coming to the webinar and sharing your wisdom and insights with us on how we can really protect ourselves from cybersecurity harm, or overall increasing cybersecurity with knowledge so that we don't get um, taken advantage of. And yeah, if you don't mind, I'll just spend a couple of seconds or minutes. I'm just gonna pick a random comment from the comment section to
Sure.
choose our winner, who will receive 300 pesos worth of Bitcoin. So, okay guys, share ko lang yung screen. Um, Random comment picker for Facebook. So I'm getting comments here. Last, ano na, we have 22 unique commenters. So one person here, para you guys will not say that I'm biased. I'll just choose the random picker and start. Okay, the name. And our winner is Edsel M. Dolores. So, Edsel, do you see this? If you're the winner, please screenshot this right now, then send it to our Facebook page. Message us on our Facebook page so we can confirm it's you, and you can send your email address, and then we'll sort out the prize. So congratulations, Edsel. Thank you for participating and joining us now. So With that, we wrap up. And once more, thank you, Sir Paul. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ken.
All right.
Right.
Thank you,
Evening,
guys.
everyone.
Good evening. Have a good one. Have a good weekend. And I'll see you in the next webinar, which will be exclusive to verified users. So mag-verify na kayo. So exciting next week. Thank you, guys.